allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up is the approval of the minutes from January 4th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Yes.
Motion to approve.
And a second? Second. Any discussion? All right, next up is the financial report.
All right, we're going to cover this year and next year. Just some quick next year. So you've got the most recent in your packet. I don't believe, apologize, Kristen could not make it tonight. She was planning to come, but last minute could not. So what's in your packet, I don't think is anything significantly different than we've seen. We're keeping an eye on the out-of-district tuitions. We'll be fine. Your rural aid is just about all spent. The ESSER 3, we have plans. We're just hanging another month or so before we do that final push of technology. Once we get just a little bit further through the year to make sure that nothing else follows up. But I think we're in good shape finishing and spending those down, and nothing significant within your regular operating budget. I think we're running as planned.
Just a couple questions. So just remind me what you said last time, the special ed rural aid's gonna cover the majority of that, and where are we getting the
Yeah.
rest from?
So, again, the way things look right now, if that line stays $30,000 short, there's other things in your budget that will probably cover that.
Okay.
You had some turnover in teacher salaries. That doesn't include the coaching stipends though, so there will be more of that paid out. But we'll keep an eye on that, but that's an example of why we haven't quite ordered all the technology that we think we're gonna use with that final ESSER. Because if we need some of it to get through, we wanna get through the winter and see what the utilities look like and any other HVAC related issues. And then we'll see. If that line with all of the problems we're having stays $30,000 short, I think we can cover it within your regular budget. If not, we'll hit ESSER or we'll hit a revolving fund.
Okay. Was there talk last month about possible additional circuit breaker?
And we're waiting to hear that,
So
yeah.
there may be.
So the thing is, I think we will qualify for a little. So first is the calculation of whether we qualify. And I believe we will qualify for a little. Then comes waiting for the state to tell us how much of what we really qualify we will get based on the pool of dollars that they have in that line item.
But with the shortcomings in the state budget, with the cuts that the governor's making.
The governor's 9C cuts did not cut any educational lines,
This is
so that
true.
was good.
This is true, but I wonder if we're going to, rob Peter to pay Paul. I don't think that's been decided yet. has it?
Well, yes, look, for this year, yes. Governor came out with a really long list of things that she was cutting or freezing to get through this year.
Yes, this fiscal year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Next year is a different, but that's what we're in the middle of now, trying to figure out what is fundable and all the revenue discussions. Yeah.
And just a couple small things to check back on from last month.
Yep.
Which was the lines for superintendent dues and professional development.
Yeah, and they didn't do the transfer yet, but some of the superintendent dues belongs in the school committee dues and conventions, and a little of it is over with some auditing information that is really more central office.
Okay. And the professional development, you thought maybe that wasn't actually encumbered? That's this last line on the first page.
Yeah, actually, it belongs in the line above.
Okay.
So you see the 7,000 above,
Yeah.
that's got a positive balance.
Yeah.
We need to redirect that encumbrance to up above. So when they pay it, they'll pay it from the line above.
Okay. And then the last question I had was about library books. So I just was noticing library books is going up a little bit, but on our new budget for next year, our categories have changed a little bit. So just wondering if maybe things are just categorized wrong, is that why?
They-
On this one,
On this one.
Right.
It is, and I thought
Okay.
we had fixed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We're trying going forward to get our categories cleaner than they've been the last couple of years to align with our state reporting.
Anything else?
You know, Jackie hit a couple of the questions I had, and I think the questions that remain are probably similar. So, for instance, the training salaries on page 2, I'm guessing,
Bus drivers.
so that's, I just wanted to confirm.
For in the mechanic area that's over,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
we've had more training, more other, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then also the guidance salaries versus guidance contracted services?
Well,
Is
the
that-
guidance salaries are your actual staff. Contracted services at this point in time, and actually, contracted services, a lot of that line is actually, we created it this year for translation services, and we haven't needed to charge the budget because the state emergency funding is what we could use for it.
That's what I wanted just to make
Yep.
sure I was understanding.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So if that is it for the fiscal year, what we now have to do is move forward to 25, fiscal 25, and have a quick conversation. I did give you all a copy of the 2 pages of the capital plan that we did discuss that night, but it wasn't in your packet. Wanted to make sure you have it. It lines up with the 2 lines that are in your budget. Beside that, we haven't had any significant changes or questions that needed answering. The only thing I did queue up is something I do want to do. I mentioned last month that there was an out-of-district tuition in the works. It is still in the works. The exact placement hasn't been decided, but there will be another placement. So if there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer. If they're not, what we all need to do now is vote the budget that we want to move to March in. And the budget that I'm recommending we do is what we presented last month, plus $65,000, which we will increase on the private tuition line. So if we increase that $65,000, the total that I recommend we move forward to March with is $13,895,627. And we would need a motion and vote on that. $13,895,627, which should be $65,000 over the total you were all looking at last month.
And that's 65 from the out-of-district placement?
Yes, we're gonna increase the private tuition line
In anticipation.
in anticipation.
So can I get a motion to approve $13,895,627 to move that to the March budget?
So moved.
Second. Oh, sorry, all in favor? Sorry.
So the only last piece with that is just to confirm, a reminder, in the past, we've had our public hearing on the same night as your regular school committee meeting next month. What we've done in the past is start our meeting at 6 o'clock and we have to legally post the public hearing. So we'll send out notices and make sure folks know they can get copies. We usually send a copy of the budget to the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, and then the public hearing notice says it's available at our office if they want more. We usually open our meeting at 6 and post the public hearing for 6:30. We recess, go do the public hearing, and then come back. Sometimes we've taken care of all business except budget, sometimes we still have other budget to do, but then we come back into your regular session after the public hearing to vote what you really want to go to the town as your ask. Does that work for everyone? So we will post it with the regular meeting. We will miss you, Jackie, but keep you posted. All
I'll
right.
send along any questions I
Yeah,
have.
absolutely, absolutely. And Larry Morrison is your liaison. He did make, last Saturday, we spent the whole morning up at Tantascwa reviewing the Tantascwa budget. We were there 4 hours, 8:30 to 12:30, doing their budget. Larry was in attendance for that. He did apologize, he wasn't gonna be able to make this meeting again, but set another meeting up with Kristen and I can't remember where we landed, we were on Valentine's Day, but I think we got off of that. Sometime mid-February that he's gonna come into the office and I will go through Burgess as well as any questions that he has for Tantascwa, so he'll be all caught up by the public hearing. I think that's it for finance.
All right, next up is communications.
Really just FYI, coincidentally, the month that the junior high started their pilot, Department of Ed gave a grant to pilot the phone pouches. I don't know if any of you have junior high students. If so, you're probably hearing their struggle. It's quieted down quite a bit, but coincidentally, the same month, Marshall's memo here, Marshall's memo is a district-wide, it's a national distribution. Kim Marshall distributes a number of different articles and education-related items each month, and December happened to have this article, which I thought was timely and did a pretty good job of summarizing the issues that we're having, especially as our students. It's really easy, somewhat easy, at the elementary level to say, if you got them, fine, I don't want to see them. But once they get older and they have other needs and want to push the envelope a little bit, it's harder. It's harder, which I think the article does a good job of saying why it's harder and what the possibilities are. So we actually, the item noted in this is the actual product, is the Yonder pouches that they're trying. We'll be gathering data in another month or two to see from the staff perspective how it's, if they feel like it's helping. And then we'll share that out.
Is there ever a need to implement it at the elementary school?
Just gonna ask.
There may be.
Okay.
You know, there may be. And another concern we have is with the smartwatches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's a growing concern within the classrooms. You know, keeping in mind things that can happen are people being audio taped without their consent, because we are a dual consent state. So it's a problem, and I think for us, and you guys can weigh into if you have anything to add, but our biggest issue with cell phone utilization is the utilization that occurs out of school, after hours, that gets brought to school. That is our biggest concern. You know, there is a lot of movement, you're seeing it in the news, of trying to sort of restrict children's use, and I would support that tremendously, because we see the harm that it can do when it's not used properly. We are getting support from the courts. You know, when we are having issues with other types of things, not necessarily just the cell phone utilization, but children who are in crisis that require that we go to court. The judges are being extremely proactive in actually having probation take custody of the phones, so that the parents are not put in a situation in which they have to deal with that, because oftentimes it's hard to reason with a preteen. So it is a concern at this level. I would just ask everybody to keep them at home, but.
Tantas was also working regardless of whether the pouches continue or not. They're also looking at a firmer cell phone policy. So when they finish working on what they're working on, I'm happy to share and see, you know, some of it may be relevant and good to put into place at the elementary level.
Do we currently have any policies on?
You don't have a policy in, but you have, you know, probably, I'm just your student handbook,
Right.
which again, because school committee reviews student handbook is similar to it would serve as a policy. If we refer to what's in the handbook, it has as much teeth as a school committee policy. But I think actually that's where TAS was looking at their two handbooks. So we might be able to put a little more teeth to what that says. We'll review it and see. You know, it's tough, and it's really the toughest is how to control it and not be putting too much more burden on the teachers. But we really do. If you put more teeth to it, we're going to need to ask the teachers to stick with it and consistently. And we know. We love them all. Some are, you know, maybe a little more flexible than others. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be, nope, if we see it, we're taking it. So.
And that's hard. It's hard.
It
to
is.
hard to put the teachers in that position.
Yeah. And it's a time suck. So that's the bigger problem.
Are the pouches only at the junior high, not at the high
Yes.
school level?
Yeah.
And so a grant funded those, but we get to keep them, or is it?
Yeah, no, well, the district does. So the grant funded, and while high school kids will hate me for saying this, in retrospect, there's another school district that we talk to regularly that did it junior high and senior high all at once. which in retrospect, I kind of wish we had piloted the whole thing and just taken it all right away. But the pouches, in theory, if we were to continue, there's a pouch given to every single child. So if it were to continue and then need to be funded within the budget, you'd buy the pouch for the child in 7th grade. It's theirs
All the way through.
unless they ruin it or damage it, but it's theirs all the way through.
Okay.
So it would kind of be the incoming, the 8th graders should still, next year's 8th graders would still have theirs
So
from 7th grade.
it wouldn't stay with the school, it would stay with the student.
For as long as they're with the school.
Right, yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there additional possibility for funding for
We
additional
haven't
grants?
seen any yet, but we have already gotten a survey from the Department of Ed, asking every school who got the grant, what did you do, how's it going? So we're starting to gather data. I am sure the problem is not just us, which is
Yeah.
what I say every time staff feels like we've got huge problems. We do, but it's not just us. When the commissioner's memo comes out each week, and there's whatever the articles of the week are, my favorite line is, I promise you, he did not write that just for us. If it's there, it's because it's a statewide problem. So if they're looking at trying to gather data and looking at what's happening and what they could do to help us statewide, they might share either more money options or other ideas that other school districts have done. And I think they're asking for copies of policies. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and give us some recommended policies that might be a little different than what some of us already have, so.
I mean, in theory, we should need less pouches at the elementary level versus the junior high level.
Yeah.
So if there was some
In theory.
funding, in theory.
Right. Yep.
You seem
We'll take a look
skeptical of
at
that.
Yeah, volume wise, yeah.
Alrighty, we'll keep you posted. I just thought it did a good job of summarizing the problem. Yeah.
On to the principal's report.
Hello, everyone. Our enrollment right now remains very consistent at 905. Superintendent Boyd will be discussing a possible fluctuation in our enrollment coming up in her report. I'd like to congratulate Melissa Forney's class for winning the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Name a Snowplow contest. The class is one of 12 contest winners across the state with the winning name of the Snoller Express. Representatives from the DOT and local dignitaries came to Burgess on Tuesday, January 23rd for a presentation and unveiling of the snowplow with the Snoller Express logo. It was wonderful, and Jackie's daughter was actually, Catherine
Yeah,
was the one
actually,
who.
I sent the article in
Yeah.
with her.
And it just took,
Yeah.
it was wonderful. I mean, the representation from the state and our local dignitaries was amazing. And the kids were just so excited, and they were blaring the horn, much to probably our neighbors' distress, because you couldn't hear it too badly in the school, because I checked that out. I'm like, our neighbors might not be happy, but that's okay. It went really well. It was very quick, so congratulations to them. Curriculum instruction and assessment, we have wrapped up access testing for our English language learners. MCAS dates are there. I believe they've been posted on the website, so everybody's aware, and we ask that people try to not take vacations during those times. In the middle of the year, STAR assessments in English language arts and math are ongoing. I think the window closes February 9th. Okay, so, kindergarten registration is up and running, and I'm somewhat encouraged that we have a much larger number at this point than we did last year. So it seems hopefully that we won't have that last minute registration at the very beginning of the school year. So that is ongoing, and you have the department updates there for your information. And just one other note that didn't make my report, we did receive $1,000 from Mobile Exxon in a donation to be focused on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We receive this pretty much annually. It's very, very thankful for the generosity. We have, in the past, replenished our microscopes and things like that. So I don't know how you want to do that. You don't vote to.
Yeah, and we vote to accept
Accept,
donations.
okay, yeah.
So we want, but are they the two of them?
There's two $500 checks,
So-
two separate $500 checks.
You could do it in one, you know, a motion to approve $500 each from Mobile X.
Mobile Exxon.
They're both the same.
No, you're gonna have to do them separately. So one from Global Partners.
All right, I'll just start. I would like to make a motion to accept a check for $500 from Global Partners. Can I do it all in one and then just add the
You
second
could do,
one?
and it's
And then one is
500 from.
$500
Summit
from-
Summit Distributing.
Summit Distributing.
Yep.
Can I get a motion to accept that? Second, all in favor?
Alrighty.
I'm just wondering if we have any update on the nurse's position.
The nurses' positions. So we, because Lenny is going to part-time, so we actually have made movement on that. We've made an offer to someone for the .8 position, because Lenny will be, a .2.
0.0.
Yeah, yeah. And then the nurse's position, the posting closes on Monday. And we will begin interviews immediately.
Any questions? All right, superintendent report.
All right, just a couple, which I really could have put in the finance, and we did get, the governor's first budget came out a couple weeks and a half ago. As was hoping, Sturbridge does have an uptick of Chapter 70 funding, which are exactly where we should see when you look at your L population, your student enrollment is up, the L population is up, and your low-income population is up. So that did result in an increase. Out of our 6 districts, 3 of them are getting nothing but $30 more per student, and it'll be a rough, but Sturbridge, I think, is getting about $400,000 increase in, which will help pay for ours and hopefully stabilize the town from last year when they supported almost 7%. So I'm sure they were happy to see that, which again gives me comfort that we can move forward with this budget, which is pretty much level services, but with a little extra. We put our permanent sub back in the budget. So little bit of increase there, and keeping up with our capital needs. I think hopefully we should be able, Sturbridge should be okay this year. The only other thing to note, related actually, is, as Kathy mentioned, we will probably have a shift down in enrollment within the next few weeks. We were notified 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago? No, the original one I think was 2 weeks ago, that the emergency unsheltered families that we've been hosting in Sturbridge are going to be relocated. They're supposed to be, we were told it would be happening on February 14th. Then as recent as yesterday, we were told that might not be the date, they're taking a little more time. I don't think it'll be a lot more time. I think there's a couple of sites out there. The first site that we were told they would all be going to would be beyond the 60-mile radius that would give them the option to stay here. I don't know where we are right now, so still a little bit more time before we'll know for sure, but it seems pretty clear that they will be leaving us, which is, you know, it's a little heartbreaking. I think this building has embraced the new families and served them well, and hopefully they will still get services. Beyond school, I know it has been a struggle with them here,
Right.
so that they haven't been getting services that they could use. That will be 26 in this building.
You know, it's definitely, difficult for everybody, but I do believe that the intent of, the offices, the state is to put them in a situation in which they have much better access to healthcare,
Transportation.
and everything. So the intent behind the transfer, although timing seems a little odd, but it's well intended to make sure that they have that greater access.
So we'll keep you posted on that, but it's very possible that by the time we meet again, we have the decrease. And again, depending on the where, there's still a potential that some of them could choose to stay, and we would need to be, legally, we would share the transportation. So if it's less than 60 miles away and a family chooses to stay in their original school district, the new residing and the initial one split the cost of transportation.
Through the
So-
McKinney Defense.
Yes, correct.
Did some of them come from other districts though?
Not from this, not, well, there were a couple, there actually were a couple in Massachusetts that I think they might, I think they're already
No,
back
no.
to their original.
No, they're not.
Or we're not paying to transport them, so
They
something
decided
happened.
to stay. Majority's decided, okay, we have some that were in other
Yeah.
districts that
Correct.
chose to come to
Yeah.
Burgess. We had a few families that chose to stay, and all of them have
Yeah.
gone back to.
There were only a few students. We had more that came from elsewhere in the state. So that didn't matter a whole lot, wherever they are now placed. It's considered their placement of origin and from there, they'll track. So we'll keep you posted on that. That's all I have this month.
Questions? On to public access.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is in regards to one of the articles that we talked about last time that we're going to be reviewing tonight, GCA. We're just wondering, what is the process for this? Like it's about the staff positions. How are the positions decided upon? Who writes the job descriptions?
Well, administration.
Administration, okay.
If and when we feel like, either during the year or a budget process, if it's a budget process, we report to you that you need a new position and we tell you what it is. And if it's a brand new one, then we develop the job description and usually share it with school committee. This is also saying if in the middle of the year something wasn't part of the budget process and we need a new position created, we would come to you and share with that. But also, we already had an existing job description and position, for example, for an L teacher. I told you we were going to hire another one because of the population and how we were going to fund it. So it's typically initiated at the administration level.
Okay. What was the last position created by the school committee?
Well, Burgess specific, perhaps an L teacher a number of years ago, and that was part of the budget process. I think we started with support and then went to L teacher.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I don't remember ever doing, talking about creating a position.
No.
So can I piggyback on that?
Yeah.
So does the school committee, do you see the new positions and the job description and the responsibilities?
I haven't seen one.
Because the last one
Because
would
we,
have been
like,
the.
we haven't, I don't think we've created one in
Right.
2 weeks,
No,
so.
not, more likely, we add more of the same
Same,
position.
correct.
The teacher position exists.
Mm-hmm.
The psychologist
Guidance,
position, your guidance, they're positions that exist. And what we more have a conversation is of needing another one.
Do you have anything particular in mind?
Curious. How that all works. But I have another question. So actually mine comes when thinking about residency. So I'm actually thinking about policy JEC. So I know when people come to Sturbridge, they have to provide some documents proving that they are actual residents. So recently, it has come to our attention that we do have some families who perhaps do not live here. So what happens and how do we get those families to prove residency beyond the categories that are listed here? So if we know through conversations with students, accidental bumpings within a community where these people live, but again, how do we assure that these families truly reside here? And if we have suspicions that they don't, what are the next steps?
I feel like we go through this all the time.
So let me
Go through this all the
right, let me
time.
go through. But
Yeah.
we're being stymied right now. So I'll go back to long before your folks' time on the committee, but back 8 years ago, it was determined we had like 23 families that did not reside in Sturbridge. It was a tremendous force and effort. We had to, ask people to reprove. A lot of these come in as double ups. So they're doubling up with a grandparent or a relative. We, in that process, then we tightened that up a lot where we required not only the person applying for residency, but the homeowner, because under Mass General Law, if it's found that there's a fraudulent residency for access to school enrollment, then it is the homeowner, if they're providing false information, can actually be charged the per pupil expense of that student. So what we instituted was that in those circumstances, the parent or guardian and the homeowner had to go to the town clerk in Sturbridge to have it notarized. And why we did that was to ensure that the homeowner was fully aware of their financial culpability if the residency was proven false. Back at that time, the memorandum of understanding the standard memorandum of understanding for SROs was different than it is right now. It's changed a lot in the past few years, in which the SRO at the time could much more actively engage in the residency, the research of the residency. That no longer can happen. So that's somewhat of the difference between what happened before and what we were able to do and where we are now. So, currently we're asking them to come in and reprove residency. They reprove it the same way they did it before. We meet with them, I meet face to face, and actually our SRO does sit in on the meeting, doesn't say much, but is present, just for taking in information with me. We do follow, we do stakeouts, and that is under memorandums of understanding with SROs, becomes the responsibility of administrators. So we have been doing that. We are currently in a situation where we have, 2 different families that we're working with. I do have a meeting with them next week to come in. We did require some information from RMV because the law requires that within 30 days of changing their address, they have to update it. That hasn't always been instituted, but we are requiring that and then checking with the RMV, and Colby can actually help with that to make sure that it has occurred. I am meeting next Tuesday with the parents and guardians, as well as the homeowner, the Sturbridge homeowner that is claiming that address, with Lynn Gerard, our town clerk, is going to come to the meeting and attend. But we still could come out of this with no resolve, and we are 100%, I am 100% sure that these 2 families do not live in town. But we still could come out with no resolution. So I think what Delane is asking for is support for what can we really require that they do. It's just, we understand, in meeting with one of these parents, when push came to shove, even though she did not acknowledge that she was living in town, she clearly stated, well, people just want a better life for their children. I said, well, they can't do it on the shoulders of the taxpayers of Sturbridge, you gotta move to town. If that's what you want, you have to move to town. It really puts administrators in a very, very difficult situation. I don't have time to be following people around.
No, we spend a lot of time hunting down residency. I'm happy to ask legal advice, but,
Right.
short of, I don't know of any formal charges we can, or paying a private detective is not something that we have done.
But may have to do because I don't know. Because I'm mentioning 2 specific families, right? With 3 children here and children at the other schools, right? We know for a fact that there are others, we just haven't got to the point of, doing all of the steps that I just outlined for you.
So when we look at the policy, is there a way that the school committee can write in, so if we suspect, we would require X, Y, and Z? Is there anything
There are legal
else?
ramifications of, the legal list of documents we can ask for.
Correct.
But I'm happy to bring it back next month. We don't have the policy in front of us, so we didn't know. residency is not, is it in today's packet?
No.
Right, that's
No,
my
so
point.
it was a
Is if we
concern.
want to review it, I'm happy to put it on a future agenda, but we don't have it in front of us, so we don't have what you're referring to. I just know that the things that we can ask for,
The utility bill. driver's
exactly, you know,
license,
proof of
DD.
residence with a
Easy
name.
for people to.
It
So
is,
those are
but I also
Yeah.
do now actually in a public arena start talking
Correct.
about
Yes.
things that ultimately are also talking about children. So, you know, I understand there are families that we continue to work with. We also walk a very fine line because something that you call doubling up, someone else calls homeless.
Right.
And once it's homeless, it's homeless. Somebody says homeless, we have homeless regulations that we have to follow. So I think we spend a lot of time and effort hunting down, and we'll continue to do so, but I'm happy to put the policy in the packet
it would
next
be-
month for a refresher.
Interesting to also sort of hear the legal side of that,
Yeah.
because I mean, we could write whatever we want in a policy, but if the law doesn't support it, then
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, right? So I think we need to understand that.
I'll bring it
side of
up,
things as
I'll put it
well.
on next month's agenda. We can review it and get some advice. Okay. You want public access?
Any more?
Maybe.
Good. All right, subcommittee reports.
I don't think there are any.
We did not have a meeting last time because of the weather.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Really hard.
Be at it in a couple weeks.
Okay, now on to unfinished business.
So we only have unfinished, we don't have new, and I, absolutely full disclosure, have not. I feel like there were a couple little changes that we talked about, and I have not checked to see if they have
They're
been
mostly done. Hey, there were just a couple things
Okay.
that weren't there. So in the first one, GBEBD, just that second paragraph.
It was KCD, I wrote it
KCD.
here.
So it was removed from down at the bottom, cross-references, but it just wasn't struck
Okay,
in
Um,
the body of.
so we're gonna just strike the "and" district policy, KCD. So we're gonna end it with law.
Law.
Yep.
So in GBI, we still had a few things that had a strike through on them. Usually that's removed for final reading, but.
Sure,
System
okay,
and
just to
the-
make sure before we post that
Yeah.
we get rid of the edits.
This,
Got
yeah,
it.
the system, and then
Yeah.
under legal
And then
references,
let
that
reference down the
55.
bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll just make sure we clean before posting.
And then we have a typo in GCA, where second line, where it says districts, there's the 2 apostrophes.
Got it.
That's it. Well, that word was changed, so I was comparing.
It's a wonderful thing, this is great.
Love it. Great.
Because I looked at them, I did not see that.
All right, so we could certainly, you could vote on second reading and adoption, GBEBD through GCA with amendments.
All right, can I make a motion to approve GBEBD through GCA with the second reading and adoption with the amendments? So moved. Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor? All right, do we have any new business?
We do not have any next month, I suspect there will be some. Actually, you don't have any, because Tantascwa didn't need to do their second readings of the next batch. They may have a really big staff by the time they meet again, but.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Awesome. We will see you all in March, and we'll do the public hearing and spend some time here and some time in the cafeteria.
That's right.